Call Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Before I make some specific comments about this Weathertight Homes Resolution Services Amendment Bill, I just want to respond to one or two things that the member Matt Ducey said in his contribution there. He gave us a very interesting, if somewhat ponderous, kind of journey through a number of different housing issues. I couldn't help but notice one or two things that Matt Ducey said. He made the rather startling claim that the National Party is the party of home ownership, which will come as something of a surprise to many New Zealanders who, for the last 6 years, have watched this government sit on its hands while house prices in our two largest cities have gone through the roof. Home ownership rates are plummeting, and this government does nothing about it. The Reserve Bank says they're not doing enough and they should do more. Harcourts the other day said their failure to build houses...
This is about weathertightness.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
No, I've ruled.
Okay. Well, I just want to say, following on from the previous member's lengthy disquisition on his baking exploits in Canterbury, Mr Speaker, that at least I'm talking about housing issues. And I'm responding, Mr Speaker, directly to outrageous claims that were made by the member who spoke previously, that the National Party is the member for home ownership, because clearly, sir, they are not the party of home ownership. And in that member's city, this government has presided over the snail's pace residential rebuild that has caused rents to go through the roof in the very communities where that member lives, sir. And that is a disgrace. And that he can stand up and claim to be the party of home ownership when his party has presided over plummeting home ownership rates shows an audacity that I admire. He also talked at some length, Mr Speaker, about the problems faced by the young and vulnerable in cold, damp homes. Well, he's right. Big problems. 1/3 of New Zealanders live in private rental accommodation, and by and large those houses are not insulated, and we are hospitalising in this country, sir, far too many young people with chest infections and respiratory and infectious diseases because those homes are cold and damp, and yet that member's party does nothing about it. They refuse to take notice of the groundbreaking public health research we have in this country that makes the connection between cold, damp homes and kids being hospitalised. What's needed are guaranteed minimum standards that would require that private rental properties be insulated and have a heating source. But what does Matt Ducey's party in government do about it? Sweet FA, Mr Speaker. They bake scones. They bake scones.
Order. Now that's not a parliamentary term that is acceptable. I'll ask the member to withdraw that phrase.
I withdraw that, sir. That party on that side of the House do very little at all to address the problem of unhealthy housing. All they've done is implement a pathetic little pilot scheme in a few hundred state houses, and they do nothing about thousands and thousands of private rental properties where kids are being hospitalised because they're living in cold, damp homes, sir. So it shows an extraordinary, either an ignorance of his own party's policies, or an extraordinary audacity for that member to get up in the House and pretend sympathy for the many young people who are growing up in cold, damp homes and getting sick because of it.
What did you do?
I wanted to, sir, really just underline my colleague's comments that Labor's supporting this Weathertight Homes Resolution Services Amendment Bill to Select Committee. What does it do? It clarifies some of the provisions, let's say the drafting errors in the bill that was originally passed, in order to help the Weathertight funding assistance package to work better. And goodness knows, sir, the Weathertight funding assistance package needs to work better. What will the bill do? It will actually benefit about 70 homeowners. 70. 70 homeowners will benefit from this bill by the clarification of the eligibility criteria and the tweaks that this bill makes. It is a very modest, very minor bill. It does very little to improve the situation of leaky homeowners. And I want to point that out, sir, in the context of the fact that the national government promised a lot on this issue. When Maurice Williamson was the Building and Construction Minister, he promised a great deal, sir, about fixing the problem with leaky homes. In 2010, he announced the burden sharing agreement that would see the government contributing 25% of the repair costs, if councils contributed 25% of the repair costs, and the homeowners contributed 50%, and promised to forego their right to sue, their right to legal action. And Maurice Williamson was all over the news with this. He was all over the headlines. And he announced, and John Key announced, that National was putting aside $1 billion, Mr. Speaker, to help fund the repairs of leaky homes. Well, they promised a lot, but they have delivered very little, sir. In July 2009, PricewaterhouseCoopers estimated that between 22,000 and 89,000 homes were affected, with a forecast of 42,000 dwellings that were likely to be leaky homes. That's the scale of the problem. And Maurice Williamson said he was going to solve the problem. The government was going to spend $1 billion helping the owners of leaky homes. $1 billion they promised. Well, what happened, sir? What actually happened here? In 2012, a year after Maurice Williamson trumpeted this new $1 billion scheme to bail out leaky homeowners, Tim Rainey of Rainey Law, one of the legal firms that has spent a lot of time working for leaky homeowners, he asked the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment about how many payouts had been made. In the year and 3 months after the scheme, this $1 billion scheme came into effect, only 1,232 leaky homeowners had lodged expressions of interest. Only 186 homeowner agreements had been finalised, and only 12 homeowners had received their final payments. Mr. Rainey and John Gray of the Homeowners and Businesses Association, HOBANS, criticised the scheme's excessive bureaucracy, long delays and difficulty getting repair jobs approved and money paid, saying that although the government scheme sounded fine in practice, actually it did not work. Sorry, sounded good in theory, it actually didn't work in practice. So let's fast forward to 2013, sir, when the government had paid out only $8 billion, or $8 million, sorry, of the $1 billion that it promised. So $8 million paid out 2 years after Maurice Williamson trumpeted his $1 billion scheme. You know, Auckland Council announced last year that they had spent $22 million on lawyers and consultants trying to deal with their share of the leaky homes problem. So one council has spent more than twice what this government has paid out under the funding assistance package when they promised a $1 billion bailout scheme. National have promised a great deal, sir, on this issue, but they have actually delivered very, very little. I want to just talk briefly about a case just outside my electorate, sir, in West Auckland, which stands, a building that stands really as a monument to the whole leaky homes fiasco. It's called Pepperwood Mews. It was a development initiated by Housing New Zealand. They did a deal with a shonky developer to build a whole lot of apartments. The apartments were sold by the developer under this agreement to a whole lot of hard-working Kiwi first homeowners. That building now, sir, stands blighted, graffiti covered and partially demolished while the homeowners, the leaky homeowners, try to get their money back from Housing New Zealand through the courts. That is a fitting memorial to this whole leaky homes disaster.